Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we are back working on Brent's truck here. I had installed the header panel to make sure we had a good width here for the fenders. I also compared our measurements between the horns here and then also up here at the very top across to other trucks that we have here to get the measurements very similar so we could kind of snug all this down. And the reason I wanted to snug all this down was because I want to put the intercooler in today. So it's a lot easier to put the intercooler in without anything in the way. So we have no header panel, no bumper filler, no hood latch, no support for the core support, nothing on the inside, no radiator, nothing like that. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to try and get this intercooler mounted in the front. I had previously mentioned in another video that we had previously cut out the holes here in the core support, and we did that before it was painted. So Banks will send you templates to lay on here and cut these out. I'm hoping that they're gonna fit. It's a lot easier to put this intercooler in with nothing in the way, so that's why we're gonna do it now. He did buy a Banks Technicooler kit. We've already started to install the upper side up here. We have to finish that a little bit later in the video. But this is the other side there. This will be your cold side from the intercooler. Waiting for bolts to come in so we can install this. So this will go up in the valley, and the hot side is just as pretty. So the tubes and stuff will be after everything else is installed. So you'll find throughout this video that you'll see different stuff installed, because we're going to go ahead, get the intercooler in, and then put everything else in, and the intercooler pipes will literally be the last thing that we put in. So you'll see a lot of different features on the truck as we go through the intercooler install video this time around. But first of all, I went ahead, opened up our bag of bolts, got our brackets all set out. So Banks gives you brackets like this. All right, so we have 3 brackets here. This is your bottom bracket, and it will go way down here. So that guy goes down there. This is the receiving side of this same bracket. It gives you places for the bolts to go through that hold this on. And then this bracket up here will go right here in this existing hole. So we had to set the front end on and get our dimensions right for the width of the header panel for these brackets, because in doing so, this actually overlaps the bracket a little bit, and you can't put this bracket here over this bracket. So with the overlap that you get with this, you have to make sure that these are set correctly. So now you wouldn't have to worry about that if you just took your header panel off of your truck and was installing this, but we were doing a fresh install on everything, so we had to make sure that was good. But we're going to go ahead and start by installing all these brackets. So we have this side to do, and we have this side over here to do. But we're going to go ahead and get these brackets installed, and I'll show you all the hardware that Banks sends with this kit. And it's up to you if you'd like to use it or upgrade to a different type of bolt. So that's why we're waiting for bolts for the cold side of the intake up here, because we wanted bolts to match the rest of the valley. So we're waiting on those to come in. But we're going to go ahead and get this front side installed. So Banks sends you a bunch of stuff here. I have it all laid out according to its respective sizes, and then also gives us all this stuff up here. And then we have the owner's manual here, the installation instructions. So we have all of our bolts here. All of the instructions show inside, where everything goes. And the only brackets we're not going to be using are the brackets for the transmission cooler, because we're running an aftermarket cooler. And then also there's no sway bar on the front of this truck because it's not two-wheel drive. So it says right here, not required on leaf sprung suspension. So they send you the stuff for this, but we won't be using it. So our main focus is going to be on this page here for right this second. We're going to get all these brackets mounted in, and it tells you which bolts go where. So make sure whenever you're doing a Banks install that you have this manual, because it is invaluable. So we're going to go ahead and start with our bottom one here. Now, Banks is nice enough to give you a little grab handle to hold these things whenever you have a radiator in here. So with the radiator installed, you can go ahead and hold on to this piece and get it in here, because with the radiator installed, it takes up all this area. Now you don't want to tighten these up because this does move a little bit here. And the reason it moves is to allow for the intercooler to sit properly in the bracket. Now you're going to go ahead and install this bracket here. So we'll set it to the side. Now there's a rubber isolator here. This rubber isolator is shorter on one side and longer on the other. And I don't know which way it's supposed to go because they don't tell you. However, if you put the short side in, it's a little bit too short to catch the nylock. So I assume that the long side would go in because that would give enough room for the nylock to catch. So I'm going to look at this a little bit and we'll see which way it actually does go. So the longer side of the stud definitely goes inside. This gets a washer first. Then a washer and the nut on the back. So we have this lower bracket on. We'll put this upper one on here after we get the intercooler put on. So we're going to repeat this on the other side. So we have our intercooler down here, and they give you these little studs here, and they will thread into the bottom of the intercooler. There is no up and down for this intercooler, so you can use whichever side you want. However, I chose to put the top side with the serial number up. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install our brackets here. We're going to leave those loose. They also give you these rubber isolator bushings, and they go on the bottom studs, like so. Probably going to tighten this up with a wrench or a pair of pliers before we install these. But we'll get this all snugged up here to where it'll move, and we'll get it up on the truck here. Moment of truth is going to see if this actually fits. So we have it set in here, and we're going to go ahead and snug everything up and get everything aligned here. Because you can see, it's just kind of like resting here, and we can kind of move everything around. But it does fit inside the holes pretty decently, which is great. And we'll get all this snugged up, and I'll go ahead and show you everything around here. So I did our bottom brackets first. Make sure that it's fairly centered here. I kind of favored the passenger side a little bit. We can always loosen those bolts up and move it over. But these are close for our height here. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten these guys up. So you can see I tightened this up, but it still didn't tighten the inside. So I'm going to have to get a wrench in here and tighten this inside up. This is what makes this nice about doing this without anything in the way. I could actually take this AC condenser out if I wanted to, which would make this much, much easier. So we have this out of the way now. We can get a wrench in there much, much easier now. We'll repeat the process on the other side here. So we have our intercooler all mounted here, and we're going to go ahead and tighten up our top bolts as well. So we have our intercooler all mounted, fully secure, and it is permanently mounted to the core support here. We have adequate clearance on this side. It's a little bit tight on this side. But we should be okay. I'm hoping that we don't have to clearance the back of the core support any more than it already is. We may end up having to cut the back support of this core support a little bit to try to get enough space in there. If that's the case, then it's going to be what it's going to be, and we'll just have to touch up the paint. But we're going to go ahead and keep moving forward with this. So this is the front of this intercooler installed and mounted on the core support here. So we're going to go ahead and work on getting the top side all done, and then we'll mount the intercooler pipes, and that should be the end of the Banks intercooler install. So hopefully it goes smoothly. So we got this intercooler installed here, and we have this loose again. But what I wanted to show you was our clearance is down here. So you can see we're good on this side, and we're not good on this side. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to hit this right here. And we couldn't try this with when we cut this out beforehand because we didn't have the intercooler. So when we cut it, I didn't have the intercooler to check with. So we're going to go ahead and pull the intercooler back out and then clearance all of this so that we can get our pipe and intercooler coupler in through here, because we don't want to be rubbing the pipe on the core support here, and we don't want to be cutting through the boot either. So we're going to have to do a little bit of work here. However, we have a lot of clearance here and a little clearance down here, which this is mounted to the core support, so it's not going to move, so that's okay. And then the same thing over here. Lots of clearance all the way around, which is fantastic. If I can move this support up, that would solve a lot of problems. So we're going to mess with this a little bit and see what we can do here. Probably the only thing I don't like about this kit is the fact that there's almost no space in here for bolts and nuts for your bumper. So that's kind of something I don't like there. But we're going to mess with this a little bit and keep moving forward with it. So we made our necessary clearances here, and we ended up getting all this filed down. And we did the same thing over here. So we did all this over here too. So you can see what we filed down here. And basically, it's because your intercooler sits here, and then your pipe will want to be here. And we had a little more clearance on this side than we did on this side. So we had to take a little bit more meat out of this one. However, we're gonna leave the intercooler out of here for now because we need to touch up that paint. So we'll go ahead and put the intercooler back in once we get that all touched up. And that shouldn't be too bad to do. I may be able to put the intercooler in and just have to touch that up a little bit later. But for now, we're going to go ahead and work on getting this upper intake installed. Now you can see we have this installed already. This is free floating and only held right now by the hose clamp there, the V-band clamp for the turbo. We have the other piece that needs to be put on here, and they'll be bolted together here. And it uses this bolt and the bolt that's under this loom to mount the other end of the pipe there. So we're going to go ahead and get this top piece set up and show you what you need to do up here. Now obviously we've had everything removed already, and it's a simple process to remove all this. We've showed it in other videos, so you can see that we're trying to install this. So we went ahead and removed the hot side intake pipe here to give us a little more room to get these installed, this other side installed, the cold side here. And we also removed the existing valve cover bolts. So Banks gives you a washer, which would go in here, and then that would follow with their new spider, and they give you new bolts. So these are 8 millimeter, 30 millimeters long, and we have socket caps on all the valve covers here. So we went ahead and purchased some 30 millimeter socket caps to match the rest of the valve covers. So that was the idea with that. And now we're going to attempt to put this guy in here. And this is going to be lots and lots of fun because these diesel slate boots are very tight. So we'll see if we can get this guy to go without scratching anything, which would be lovely. This is basically a bunch of trial and error here. So we got our cold side installed here. And now if you come down here, it's a little bit hard to see, but there's spacers in here. You can see our spacers in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get these bolts started. I used a pick to get the spacer to move where I wanted it to move. And then we'll go ahead and get these all snugged down. So the next thing to go in would be this little guy here. And you have a bolt that would hold these two together. We're going to go ahead and get this clamp started first. Now this pipe will move a little bit, and these get bolted together. Once again, Banks gives you this bolt, but to keep true with the socket head method here, we went ahead and got a stainless bolt, and we got a brass nylock washer. Now the reason we did a brass one instead of a stainless one is because we want to make sure that we don't have any dissimilar metal issues. And I actually didn't put any thread seal or thread lubrication on this, so I got to do that. So we got that snugged up there. Before we get too far, we want to make sure that this is all going to line up correctly. So basically you can have a misalignment back here on this gasket back here. So we're going to make sure that this is kind of where it needs to be. Kind of move everything around a little bit and make sure we get a good seal on this clamp right here, because that really makes a difference. Now the only issue that we're going to have here is you're trying to fight this bracket down here as well, trying to get everything to line up the way that you want it to line up. So, you know, this won't go down anymore. So we're going to have to try to put this right where it is here. The problem with that is it's going to run right into this bracket that's over here off to the side here. This guy right here. So we might have to do some modifications to this to make it fit the way we want, because ideally this pipe here needs to be pointed up so that it can miss all this stuff here. So right now it runs into this, and it's probably going to run into this. So we're going to have this pipe pointed up a lot more and get this to aim the way we want it to aim. which means we may have to take this pipe back off and shorten it up a little bit down here at the bottom, try to get it to do what we want it to do. Either that, or we may have to just tweak this bracket over here where it's mounted to the valve cover to make it bend the way we need it to bend to get it down. So we're going to mess with this a little bit and show you what we ended up doing. So what we ended up doing was we cut the stud off on the bracket here that was supposed to hold the beauty cover. On certain trucks, which I have yet to figure out which ones are which, they have a bolt-on bracket here that will unbolt, so that holds the beauty cover. Generally, the unboltable bracket has the aluminum elbow back here, whereas this truck has the rubber elbow. So if you have a aluminum elbowed truck, you'll probably have an unboltable bracket right here. Now, we weren't able to unbolt this bracket, so we had to cut this stud off because the stud was literally right in the path of the pipe. So if you read Banks directions, it actually tells you to remove the bracket and the elbow, aluminum elbow, and then it tells you to reinstall the aluminum elbow, but says nothing about a bracket. So I don't know if you're supposed to install that or not, because they don't tell you to put it back in, but they tell you to take it off, but you kind of need it to hold this pipe. So I don't know what's up with that. So hopefully we can get this all bolted together here in the middle, and we will find out soon. We also reinstalled the AC condenser here, and we also put these brackets on. Now, if you have the factory transmission cooler, it will bolt to these holes here with the provided clamps that they give you. But we installed these brackets because they also hold the air deflector that goes on the bottom. That would be down here like this. So we went ahead and installed these and put the AC condenser back in. And now we're going to go ahead and dry fit the intercooler. What else we also did here was we put the rubber flaps on. Make sure that the wide side of the flap is on the top and the skinny side is on the bottom. And then we're going to go ahead and dry fit this intercooler back in and hopefully try to fit the pipes back together. Now, we also went ahead and touched up all of our paint from where we did some clearancing, and that looks nice and neat and tidy. So we ended up doing that as well. So hopefully we can get this system dry fit here. We'll see. So we got our nice copper pipe here, and we're going to see if this is actually going to fit in here. Oh, this is terrible. So we're running into fitment issues with the AC line here for getting this all lined up. So what we're going to do is I'm going to undo this AC line because there's nothing in the system. So I can go ahead and undo this line, and hopefully this will all slide together. So the video cut away there, and what we ended up doing was we put our hose clamps on down here, our hose clamps on up here. Ran into an issue, however, we also stopped and pulled the intercooler back out and made some bumper bolts, because once you put the intercooler in, you can't put your bumper bolts on. As you can see, we talked about this clearance previously. There's almost none. So Brent didn't have the factory bolts that go in here, but if you had the factory bolts, you could use them. However, we made these out of 1/2-inch bolts and welded them together with a plate in between. Now, the reason we did this is because he does run a buck stop bumper on here, and they always want you to update the hardware anyway. The factory inlaid plastic ones, They do tend to strip, so these will be a little bit stronger, especially since it's a little bit difficult to get anything in here. And if that plate were to break for some reason, you can still put a wrench on that, which is great. So that's why we did that. But the intercooler set back in. We got the boots put on here, and we got the boot put on over here as well. And we don't have anything tidied up here yet. We did put our clamps on the intakes down there, so spend a lot of time in getting everything set up. Now we can go ahead and try to fit this pipe, because as I was putting this pipe in earlier, I realized that once it goes in here, it is going to be in here, and I am not taking it back out because it is a pain to get in. And you know, Banks makes nice quality products. However, I would probably never buy this kit because the tolerances are just way too tight. This is way over engineered, and it makes it so difficult to put your clamps on down here. They have to be oriented just perfectly. And if you look down here, you can see that I have this one oriented this way, and you can see that the nuts are backed almost all the way off because the clamp bolts aren't long enough, and the clamp barely fits over the boot at its fully extended position. So the clamps are too small. They should at least be 1/8 to 1/4 inch bigger, because I fought these boots for at least 20 minutes just trying to put the clamps on all of them. And you can see up here too that, you know, the clamp is barely big enough to fit over the boot. Once you put the pipe in there, it's a tight fit. And granted, you want a tight fit, but you want to be able to take the clamp on and off. So earlier we took the AC off, and you can see that the line's out of the way. And the fact that you have to take the AC line off, it doesn't tell you have to, but if you're trying to put nice painted pipes on and not scratch them up, you almost have to take the AC line off. And you almost have to have the radiator out to do all this, because there's just no room in here the way that they have this all designed. It's way too tight. So the only thing that we're going to do here before we put this pipe back on is we're going to put the radiator support brace in, because I got to rock this forward a little bit to get that brace down in here. So we're going to put our brace in, and then we're going to go ahead and start putting this pipe back on. So we got our brace loosely installed here. It's not tight at all, but it goes all the way down through here. And put it on because there's intercooler needs to come forward a little bit to get this down in. You could push it up through if you wanted to, but it's a little bit more difficult because obviously you're going up instead of down. So just put that down in through there, and we're going to go ahead and finally, hopefully, put this pipe on, and hopefully this goes smoothly. So we'll see. So we have our pipe here. I think it's going to be easier to put the bottom in first. And my complaint about the clamps again, because I had to take that nut off to get this pipe to slide in. So I have a little curved pick here. Now they tell you to put these pipes together till they touch and then move them about 1/4 inch away. However, I don't even know how you would be able to do that, because the things don't slide in there very good, and they don't slide out of it very good, and the clamps are so tight. However, we were able to at least get this pipe put in. Now I got to put that AC line back in here, and make sure it doesn't hit this pipe. And I got to put the nut back on the clamp down there because I had to take it off to get the pipe in, and readjust all these clamps and tighten them up. And we'll have to repeat it for the other side. So we got all of our clamps tightened up here, and everything's nice and snug. We put the boot on the other side over there. And after tightening everything up here, you can see our clamps are all nice and tight there. We found that the pipe here and this bracket, which we talked about a little bit earlier, and they said to not reinstall it. Now I can see why, but that still doesn't give this pipe any support without it. So what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to end up trimming this bracket to give clearance for this pipe, but it'll still allow to have support for the intake tube. So that's something that we're going to have to do, but that's something that I don't like. It's actually touching right now, and I'm not a fan of that touching. So, I mean, obviously you need at least 1/4 of an inch around it. You can see that the AC line up here on top has adequate clearance. And there's adequate clearance in front of the compressor here. And then the other side of the line here, it'll come around and make it to the condenser here, and it'll have adequate clearance. But there's no clearance for that bracket there. So we're going to have to take that off. And then I came over here, and in the directions it tells you need to take the hose off that goes to the coolant bottle, which is this guy right here. And I mean, I'm dealing with a very delicate paint job on these pipes here. So I'm taking a lot more stuff off than needs to be done. I mean, to be honest with you, if you have nicely painted pipes like this nice copper color here, it's very, very difficult to try to get them in without scratching them. There's just so much stuff in and amongst this engine bay. So we have still no AC lines connected here. I have all the battery cables draped up out of the way. I have all the electrical wiring draped up out of the way that comes from the engine. And I pulled the heater hose completely off of the head here, down in here. And that gives us nice free rein here. The other issue that we're going to have is we put a extension pipe on the oil fill. And it's going to be mighty close to this boot. Now, I'm not saying it's going to cause a problem, but we need to keep that in mind. And then our liquid line here for the AC is going to try to want to occupy the same space as this pipe. But we're going to go ahead, fit this pipe in, and if we can get this pipe put in, I'm just going to leave it installed as well, and we'll go ahead and work around them, even if I have to wrap them up with towels so that they don't get nicked or scratched or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this pipe installed and get this intercooler kit done. You see we have our upper connection here. We have our lower connection down here. We have our liquid line pulled away a little bit here. We have a nice free, clear spot here to put this pipe. So just like the other side, we'll try to get this lower put in. Once again, we'll have to take the nut off of this clamp to get it to spread far enough so we can get the pipe in. We'll come up top here and try to weasel this guy in. I tell you what, there is just not enough clearance for that to go in. I may have to loosen this intercooler up and get it to come forward a little bit to get that pipe set in. All right, well, it's in. That's a plus. So now with the pipe installed, we had to take the nuts off these clamps. We want to make sure that you're centered as much as you can be in the middle of this boot. So that's why you saw me feeling in here, trying to feel each end of the pipe there. And we have this pipe installed, so we're going to go ahead and reinstall all of our clamps here, hopefully. So these pipes are pretty tight in the coupler down here. And I know they want you to back it away a little bit, but I don't think, there's a little bit of space there, but not a whole lot. But this pipe wants to be so much far forward. There we go. A little bit of gap between the two connections now. So we can go ahead and tighten these all these clamps up. And then start reassembling everything here. So we didn't tighten these clamps down because I'm probably going to have to pull this pipe back out because our core support bolts down here that hold the battery tray support, they go in these holes. And I'm going to have to probably pull the intercooler out to get the bolts in because they are captured kind of in there and they go this way. And there's no good way to get to those holes. So they're way down there. But either way, the other problem we're going to run into here is the fact that the intercooler pipe wants the same place as the AC line, which we can kind of move this around, but we don't want these to rub, so we got to do that. Doesn't look like we'll have any other interferences with anything else. And like I had said earlier in the video, we're going to have to clearance the bracket over there. But this is the majority of the install for the Banks kit, and we'll touch on this a little bit later again in other videos. But this covers the pretty much basics of installing this kit inside your 7.3 OBS. And the Banks kit is designed very well. I'm just not real happy with how everything goes together with the description of the directions, how they word things. I don't like the fact that it's made for an earlier truck, and they don't touch the fact that, you know, they've changed the intake tube over there to the turbo. They've changed the bracketry over there. That's not mentioned in any of the Banks literature that needs to be changed, modified, or anything like that. I like the fact that everything bolts together up here. There's supports for everything. However, with the support that you get here, it also creates other problems because it makes it go in one single spot. Now, we have gone through the issues with the S&B filters with these trucks, with the placement of the engine in relation to the body, with there being a lot of differences. So, you know, we run into issues with the same thing with this. We have, you know, body placement versus engine placement, and you have very, very tight tolerances with these pipes, and even this intercooler, even though they have slotted it for adjustment, you know, they still don't give you very much leeway to install this kit. And I think that it could have been designed a lot better. I'm pretty sure this was probably designed in 1994 when the 7.3 came out, and has not been modified at all since then, even though we've come across, you know, new technology or new items or you know, new developments in the adjustment of how parts are made for these trucks. You know, the discrepancies and things, the tolerances. You know, these were built to fit one truck, and they may have tested it on other trucks, but they really need to be redesigned a little bit more. The intake side up here could be a little bit better with the way that it's mounted. The bolt hole doesn't need to be perfectly round. It could be slotted, or allow you to adjust that a little bit more, to adjust this a little bit more, to get a little more height out of the pipe, or do a two-piece pipe instead of a one-piece pipe. You know, the one-piece pipe looks nice, but sometimes it's just not convenient. It's just not the best way to go. And I mean, we have a lot of clearance where we need the clearance, except for on the other side where it's going to rub the intake pipe. This side was very, very tight going in. It wanted to hit the low pressure side nozzle here, and then, you know, it wants to have the same space as the AC line, so you have to rotate this and bend it out of the way and everything like that, which that's not a surprise. But a lot of stuff had to come off, more stuff than I felt they said needed to come off, because they just told us to take the lower coolant hose down here off for the coolant bottle. And realistically, to get this pipe in nicely, this AC line had to be slid out of the way because it's in the way. All the wiring is in the way, and it makes it very difficult to install this kit with all of the stuff in the way. So I was even having issues with the minimal amount of stuff that was on here. But we can't even install the radiator at this point because, you know, we still might have to take this out to get these battery trays in, which I don't have at the moment. And we got to get the battery trays in so that I can continue installing stuff underneath the hood of this truck. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you guys can learn some stuff about this Banks intercooler install. As far as I know, they still produce this kit, so it is still available as far as I know. But we're going to go ahead and move forward with this project, try to get some other stuff done. Hopefully this won't hold us up from keeping moving forward. So thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and we'll touch on these intercooler pipes in a later video. So keep posted for the other videos on this truck. So thanks for watching again, guys. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next one.